So, Jeanette, lovely to see you. And thank you once again for spending your time being part of the jury and being the chair of our jurors for one of our sessions last week for the M&M Global Awards. What was it like being the chair of the jury?
It was excellent. It was, first of all, it's always inspiring, especially during these times, to see inspired work. And many of them were, but also each jury member was quite passionate and had a very strong point of view and were able to articulate it. So I really had to chair. And that's always exciting as well. And
Yeah.
sometimes you learn something because you can go in with a favorite, and when you hear people that are really passionate and kind of closer to the subject, you can also change your mind, which is good.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And that's great to hear. And we're glad you had a good experience. And what we've been trying to do here as a business for the last, 5 or 6 years is certainly make it much more inclusive in terms of who's on the jury so that we get a real spread and it represents society. So you've got all of those kind of mindsets and ideas in one melting pot, as it were. And that leads me beautifully on to what did you think of the entries and what kind of level, and do you think it represented a good global spread?
Absolutely, yeah. There was a good geographical spread. There were many interesting campaigns around different sectors. There were also, you could tell many marketers across the world have taken this opportunity to kind of go further in their innovations. And so I remember this one campaign by Volkswagen, which was eating pollution, and it had out of home placements that would literally be whitewashed and it would literally eat the pollution in the air. And it's the launch of an electric car. So you have what's happening with the environment. You have also the creativity coming out of coronavirus, where people can either take that opportunity to kind of feel at a loss or be even more creative. And that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that does sound good. And would you say overall that the quality of what you saw and the work that was shortlisted really kind of was excellent?
Yes, there was one juror. She represents Weetabix, and her criteria was, does it give me goosebumps? And there was one campaign called L'Enfant Bleu from Fortnite that reached out to children who were in a bad way at home, that were being abused, and they used the channel of Fortnite because parents aren't in that channel. Instead of using it to harm, they used it for good. They used that way of talking, and they launched a character called L'Enfant Bleu, and kids would start telling other kids, and influencers very, very gently would let kids know to if that was happening. And unfortunately, that escalated during coronavirus. The use of AI there was extremely sensitive, and so it was a very interesting combination of high tech with a very human issue that needed addressing and needed to be treated with a lot of care. And so it was an interesting mix in that way.
Yeah, it does sound interesting. And interestingly, from the two campaigns you've mentioned so far, that one and the ID3, they both seem to have a cause or a purpose at their heart, whereby they're, helping issues that are happening in real life, or they're protecting the environment, or providing cultural change. In terms of trends and insights from the categories and from the entrants that you were judging, what were the key things that you saw as the day wore on?
Well, I do think there was a notable increase in cause and purpose marketing. And it was interesting. Sometimes when you came across a campaign that was very, very innovative, and for example, in the esports arena, and had done tremendous things, you'd kind of have to take a step back and say, well, if this was pre-COVID, I would give it the award. But now you have a Pavlov pyramid of the good. And compared to some of the other causes or purpose-driven work that's being marked against, it's you kind of prioritize those cause-driven campaigns. Of course, not everything is a cause, but if you can also do some good, you can tell more now when it's lacking, if that makes sense. And I remember there was this one campaign, Not Her Fault, that was executed, launched, strategized, everything for $6,000. And
Wow.
I think 1 out of every 4 people in the entire country understood the stigma that exists about women being accountable for being raped because of the way they dress. And through the language of clothes, they were able to reach, a huge amount of people and have them think twice about that that norm in that society, that's okay to blame people for how they dress for violence. And it was so impressive too. So sometimes it was like the force of the cause itself overruled like what you take for granted, which are big budgets or whatever. And it wasn't at all the case. It was the power of the meaning.
Yes, I love that. The power and the meaning, really important, really important. And alongside the few campaigns you've mentioned, were there any kind of moments where you talked about goosebumps from Francesca, who works at Weetabix? And what's really interesting, were there any other goosebump moments for you when you saw 1 or 2 of the campaigns? Thought, wow, this is an amazing idea. This is something you'd love to look at how you could implement that within your strategies.
Well, always, when you're part of the target audience, you like things more. So there was one campaign that was lovely. I think it was from Australia, and it was to get kids and girls in particular involved in STEM. And it was all done with the voice of children and how they could grow up to be women in technology and engineering in different roles. And it was so lovely to see something that had a future. And that's not a classical criteria of a campaign when you're judging it, but seeing something like that in that tone and in that freshness about something that's very necessary at the same time was really very lovely.
Good, that's good to hear. And would you recommend the judging experience to your fellow marketeers and your peers around the world?
Absolutely, 100%, 10 out of 10.
Okay.
Yes, I had. It's a chunk of time, and it really went by very fast because you learn a lot too as a marketer, and again, you also learn through the judging process. How other people see things changes your lens a little bit. It makes it deeper. It makes it more zoomed in, or people are closer to the experience or the cause than you are, and I think you walk away more insightful yourself.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Well, Jeannette, thank you so much for your insight there. That's much appreciated. Looking forward to seeing you hopefully on Thursday. You get to see me doing some dad dancing and jumping up and down at the ceremony, but it should be fun.
My beagle says hello. So.
Oh, hello.
Excited. So, well, it was lovely to be with you, and